Rhythm is kind of an underrated topic in music education. To me, rhythm is what brings character to note choices. In fact, basic note choices can sound pretty amazing with great rhythms, and more advanced note choices can sound boring or even terrible with poor rhythmic choices. Here's an example of how rhythm adds some character to just a basic pentatonic scale. Here are the 5 things that I think helped me most to advance my rhythmic concept. First, listen to rhythmic players. I think this is the most efficient and effective way to change your own rhythmic concept. The best part is it requires no new acquired skills, it just goes right to the ears and changes what you hear. When I was really thinking about this, these are the people I listen to the most. You should check out all these musicians' recordings. I'm just giving you examples of what I was listening to around this time. Michel Camillo. The album Through My Eyes is great because it's mostly standards. So if you're a jazz player, you can hear what he's doing in context of common songs. Tribal Tech, all the albums up to Reality Check. Wayne Krantz, particularly Greenwich Mean and 2 Drink Minimum. Great albums for hearing 16th note syncopations. And Louis Armstrong, Hot Fives and Sevens. Louis' rhythmic concept is great, and you can see why so many of the musicians that followed him were inspired by him. These are just examples. Anybody with more rhythmic vocabulary than you will help if you just pay attention to and emulate their rhythms. 2. Explore primary subdivisions. So by that I mean eighths, eighth note triplets, sixteenths, 16th note triplets or sextuplets, quarter note triplets, and then hemiolas based on an 8th note and a 16th note. The goal is to feel each subdivision as its own time grid to play from. You should be able to count and tap each one of these subdivisions with a metronome. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a triplet, 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 triplet. Quarter note triplets, triplet, 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 triplet. 8th note hemiola. Sixteenth note hemiola. There's a process I use to incorporate these subdivisions into just about anything that I practice. I outline it in detail on my Patreon page, which I'm linking to below. It's worth mentioning that in teaching these subdivisions, I found that it's easier for some people to learn these things than others. But with the right exercises, most people can pick up on these different ways of dividing the time. Your support on Patreon means that I can make videos responding to specific problems you may have with this or other topics. Tapping time feels. This one is fun. I just take a metronome and then tap a time feel. Just anything that I hear against that, and then I try to change it. And then I try to get back around to the original time field. The goal is just to explore what you hear and try to take things in a direction and see if you get mixed up, and if you get mixed up then you just start over again. But it's an interesting way to just try to get sounds out and explore different ways of thinking about time or hearing time. I find it gets better and you can take things further the more often that you do this. The cool thing is you can do it pretty much anywhere. I used to do this a lot with a turn signal, like driving places. But yeah, as long as you're not worried about looking stupid, you can do it pretty much anywhere. Notating solos are ideas that I transcribe from recordings. This is pretty self-explanatory, but I'll give 2 examples. Here's a B.B. King solo that I transcribed for students. The main thing we're looking at here is how these guys mix their rhythms. So it's not blocks of 8th notes or blocks of 16ths. They're all mixed up. 16ths next to 8ths, triplets, intertwined with eighths and sixteenths. It's not a particularly natural thing to do. It's something that you benefit from practicing, but I might not have noticed it if I wasn't transcribing players better than myself. Here's an Alan Holdsworth solo on Isotope. I transcribed this a long time ago, so I wasn't too concerned about how the chart was laid out, but just take a look at how the rhythms move between triplets and eighth notes and sixteenths. Prior to college, I notated a lot of things with tab, but I was never actually writing down the rhythms. Taking the time to write them out made me more aware of what the different subdivisions sound like. It's really another angle on the problem. Hearing a subdivision against a metronome is one thing. Hearing that against a highly skilled rhythm section is a totally different thing. You can notate them by hand, but if you're not sure of the rhythms that you're notating, using software like Finale or Sibelius or Guitar Pro can be really helpful. If you're a student of mine on the Patreon page, then you get a 50% discount on Guitar Pro if you don't have it already. Notating your own music is hugely beneficial. It makes it really clear what you hear and what you don't hear. If you write or improvise everything in one subdivision, you never use triplets, or never use sixteenths, never use a particular subdivision, or you write everything in blocks of one subdivision and then another block of some different subdivision, that will show up in the notation. If you use the same rhythmic ideas over and over, you'll be able to see that in the notation. I've seen many people doing this and they have no idea. You'll also be able to manipulate things in ways that you might not have thought of if you were only using your instrument. Writing down your rhythms gives you an opportunity to reflect on what you know and what you can improve on. So all these ideas come at the same problem from a different angle. I found them all to be useful in upping my rhythmic game. I hope you find them helpful as well.